While we have reintroduced more than 40 endangered species, we cannot return them to a home that does not exist. Rescuing an animal is only half the battle. So please join San Diego Zoo Global Wildlife Conservancy in our efforts to preserve and conserve the native habitats of our endangered species and ensure that the wild places are filled with the wild calls of their inhabitants for generations to come. Join us now at endextinction.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social streams we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. We talk about all of those, not because, well, you're required to go there by any means, but we have some that do comment, chime in, we'll drop those likes and reacts over there, which we do appreciate, but it also serves as a very good way to make sure that you got at us no matter what the circumstance is. Had a lot of calls from you all today. Do appreciate the feedback you're giving on it. So all I can say is that they are working on broadcast issues, and any updates we'll have, we'll certainly get to you as soon as we do. But otherwise, if you got it, and I know it's not ideal for everyone, the iHeartRadio app is a way to have us right in your hand on your phone, or if you got it, or if you're on your computer, ktsmradio.com. There's a reason we mention those, because given all the circumstances, all the things that can happen in this world, being here for you in as many ways as possible is very important to us. And while we will continue doing so, dropping those reacts already, Robbie Flores and Monica Cervantes, do appreciate that. We are going to be up here and continuing in all of these ways. And we are still on air, though, again, some of your calls letting us know, dealing with the issues there. Some put more eloquently than not, but well, we'll be here in all the ways that we can for you. So a lot of things to talk about today. I know we dipped into just a bit on the whole Tommy Gonzalez situation, and that'll actually be our interview today, talking with Estefania Seifert, who did the digging into the terms of the contract and what essentially, if the current El Paso city manager should leave, what, well, taxpayers will be on the hook for, and it might be more than you think. We'll delve into that here a little bit further in the show, but also a few other things top of mind among just a whole lot going on today. Some more border security things going on, including talk about El Paso's ports of entry, and being very important in light of all the other things going on here. Slight updates going on from the national sphere. Of course, we had some of those votes going on, and well, the results of them not terrifically surprising, particularly when it comes to the whole Roe v. Wade issue and what that sets up for November. Also, a lot of shortages going on in and around the region, and not even just the region, but nationally here. But, well, take a look at all of that as we continue through the show here. So, again, comments coming in. John Hertz letting us know that he has his own issues with our signal here. Again, completely being worked on, engineers working very diligently on that. Give me some updates here right now. So, we'll keep on it as far as we can here, but let's talk about some of those issues we're looking at here. We've talked about the shortages that have come out of the pandemic. Well, the lack of economic production here, and I still stand by what I've said, though the way it's hitting in some ways has been more than a little bit surprising, specifically talking about, well, the shortages of a variety of different ways. I've said before, and again, we'll continue to stand by it, the idea that it's a good idea if you got a need for something to stock up on it, because shelves may not be entirely bare. Things you might need to get in short term may not be totally available. And of course, the way that's moving, I've been noting it myself here, but apparently it's now reaching kind of a national, not exactly fever pitch, but seriously concerning levels, I guess would be the best way to put it when it comes to very important and basic things such as, well, baby formula. That's what I'm hearing from, well, a lot of people and a lot of situations, again, across the country, because it's just not there on the shelves. Some even having to get it from other countries even. Now, probably in a unique situation here in this portion of the borderland, but among other things that are pretty highly regulated in terms of production quality. And I mean, that baby formula kind of fits that mold in general. So the fact that it keeps affecting some of those like most vulnerable essentially is, well, really concerning. And I know that there are some of those out there that have already been worried about the price of it. It's going up. I mean, baby formula is one of those things that in a lot of the newer supermarkets and, big stores that sell this kind of thing, that they are, well, behind not exactly lock and key, but those really annoying like security click bar things. I don't know of a better way to describe them, but essentially you can't just reach in there and grab it. You got to move something that makes a very loud noise as a way to make it think that you're, I guess, not just swiping it off the shelf. So that already showed how much, I guess, concern and value was on this already. And now the fact that it's just not on the shelf, if you got anyone with kids of that age and needing that in your life, you might want to check on them because they might be having a harder time than usual. I mean, being that much of a parent to a youngster is not exactly easy to begin with, but I mean, just some of the stats and things I'm seeing coming out nationally about it are definitely concerning in a variety of ways. I mean, there are a lot of talk about options and other ways to do it here, but again, check in with those that you might need to because they're probably, at the very least concerned, if not in more dire straits than that here. But otherwise happening also nationally, that very specific vote coming out of the Senate today on the trying to formulate entirely. Monica Cervantes saying, saw on the news that a main manufacturer of the powderer, baby powder, and stuff that goes into the formula in Ohio is shut down. I mean, yeah, that's been part of the problem here. Continuing supply shocks coming with this. Instability breeds further instability. Unless there's a concerted effort to get over it and fix it, it usually doesn't happen here. John Browson had also chiming in on the city manager issue, which we'll definitely be getting to here a little bit, saying that he will receive about $1 million, including 12 months salary and unused annual and sick leave. That's something that we will get into here further in there because, I mean, it's definitely six figures. That's guaranteed. There's no way around that, as Calvin Williams also chimes in. Good afternoon to you as well. But the point you're making there further, John Brazelton, saying that even college football coaches, when they move on to the better college programs, have to buy out the remaining contracts to pay someone to leave the city for a better job is insane. 2019 City Council should be, unalived is what he's advocating for there. This goes back even further than that, I got to say here, because it's a lot of these stipulations. Well, like I said, we'll get into that here in just a second. RJ saying baby formula, $50 a pound here. Plug-in Med is commenting on the quality of something here. And RJ, again, agreeing with you, praying it doesn't get really crazy here. Yeah, there's certainly a lot of concern that comes from this because, again, you and I, we can figure out something else to eat unless we got specific dietary restrictions. But someone who needs formula needs formula. So I really feel for that here. But again, just a quick note, of course, on that vote happening nationally on Roe v. Wade, essentially that national bill that would counteract that expected impending Supreme Court decision overturning Roe v. Wade with that, of course, leaked majority opinion from Justice Samuel Alito. And of course, very predictably, and not at all surprising, I guess another way to put it, that Texas Senators Ted Cruz and John Cornyn voted against it, the bill passing through the Senate, and have actually joined in further by Democrat Joe Manchin of West Virginia. Also not terrifically surprising, but of course, it was never expected to pass in the first place, given the makeup and the requirements to do such an action at the national level, even without the other legal issues along with it, just logistically and tactically, politically, tactically speaking, wasn't going to pass, but definitely going to be something that is going to be influencing the November election because, well, that was the entire point of it. That was pretty transparent. That setting this up and further reinvigoration, maybe not a total word, initial invigoration of the base on the left, essentially trying to get around an issue because, boy, oh boy, have there been a lot of concern and, well, disillusioned voters in the meantime. So searching for anything, again, not surprising in the least, but we'll have to get into that for here a lot more. A lot of comments coming in, but we're already due for that first break right now. So if you want to chime in over there, more than welcome to do so. One of the better ways to comment throughout the program here. And again, stick with us throughout both hours. You're locked in here for Talk El Paso. Coming up after this break, delving further into the specifics on the contract for El Paso's city manager, what that means for the budget and the bottom line, and, well, we'll get into it, digging into all the details there. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Back in a minute. Don't go anywhere. If you're worried about supplies and those kind of things, something that you can be pretty well assured of that you can get regardless of, well, what's going on is, got to eat good. And something I use to facilitate that for myself and my family is Enhanced Flavors, because, well, they have a whole lot of great supply coming from around the world, but they are still your local source for over 40 different quality olive oils, extra virgin olive oils, flavored varieties as well, and of course, balsamic vinegars. You can find them online at enhancedflavors.com and usually out there at the Upper Valley Arts and Farmers Market, right there in the Hobby Lobby parking lot just off of Crossroads near Doniphan and Mesa, because whatever you're working with, even if you're dealing and your preferred thing is out of stock here, helping spice up your life and bring some great new flavors into it is a great way to make sure that you're still, doing what you need for you and your family. So again, enhancedflavors.com, out there in the community, particularly the Upper Valley Arts and Farmers Markets, and try some of the great variety. I'm always trying a new one, and I'm always surprised by what you can get. So visit them again online, enhancedflavors.com. Again, that's enhanced with a D, flavors.com.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso Freeway is looking pretty good right now. I-10 eastbound at Zaragoza, a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder. Border Highway eastbound at Midway, that stalled vehicle is still blocking the right side. Dyer Street southbound at Sunrise, a medical emergency there. Take Hercules or Diana Drive as alternates. Police are still working an injury accident, Montwood Drive eastbound at Yarborough. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
Want to learn more about cryptocurrency? Check out the Mark Moss Show podcast. Each week, Mark Moss, an investor, crypto expert, and host of the popular YouTube series, shares his knowledge as a true entrepreneur. Listen to the Mark Moss podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, it's Maura Courtney Lopez, and we know life is better together.
Smart Mouth mouthwash gives us the confidence to make life's moments amazing.
We are all getting together more, and Smart Mouth's 24-hour power of fresh breath with just 2 rinses a day keeps us from worrying about bad breath in those up-close moments.
Go to smartmouth.com/radio to save 20% or find Smart Mouth at your favorite store to give you confidence as we get closer to each other.
Remember to make life's moments better together with Smart Mouth at smartmouth.com/radio.
Radio Earth is here with little tips for a healthier planet. A staggering 8 million tons of plastic ends up in the world's oceans every year. If current trends continue, our oceans could contain more plastic than fish by 2050. Do your part. Purchase items made from renewable or recycled content and recycle whenever possible. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/earth.
Hi, I'm Scotty Clark from Scott Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing. No matter what brand of air conditioner you own, I can assure you it'll never leave you stranded because it took off and went to the lake for the weekend. However, I cannot make that statement about your air conditioning contractor. Scott Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing is open 7 days a week with scheduled Saturday and Sunday appointments at weekday prices. Call Scott Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing day or night for a job done right at 595-4529.
Looking around your law firm, it's hard not to be proud of what you've created. A respected brand with 20 associates who give their all every day. You have what it takes to go big. Everything except a plan. How will you expand your footprint or increase revenue? Lexicon makes it possible. Lexicon is a legal services and technology provider with over a decade of experience helping law firms scale and grow while maximizing billable hours and maintaining client satisfaction. Call 855-4-LEXICON or visit lexiconservices.com/grow to learn more.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone?
Do flowers have best friends?
I don't know. Hey, look.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Welcome back here to Talk El Paso, airing on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on our various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the main one there, but also YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. You can find us on there. But being joined here today by Estefania Seifert, investigative reporter with KFOX 14 and our news partners there. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks. Happy to be back here again.
Absolutely, because we have a lot of interesting situations that have been developing here lately. More investigative reports coming out, but given the circumstances of this early part of the week here already, wanted to actually throw back to one of your previous ones, delving into the nature and full details, as much as is publicly available anyway, on the contract for El Paso City Manager Tommy Gonzalez.
Right. So back in September 2021, this was actually my very first investigation when I took over the role of investigative reporter.
Mm-hmm.
And I filed open records requests for his contract, his renewed contract, and any amendments that were made to it. And sat down with a lawyer who went through it with me. We basically, found out that if he resigns with adequate notice, or if city council decides not to renew his contract, either way, the city of El Paso owes him a hefty severance package.
So those particular deadlines in that way, respectively, he resigns. I believe it's 120 days notice he has to give. And for city council's side, it's 60 days notice that they have to do so. And again, in either of these circumstances, well, the outcome is essentially identical in terms of the payout that then comes out of, well, the public offers there.
Yes. So what we're looking at is basically a year's worth of his current salary. Initially, his salary had started at about $238,000, a little more than that, almost $240,000. And that was when he was first hired in 2014. At this point, he's making over $400,000. As of 2021, that's when he got a pay boost, if you will, a pay bump from the performance evaluation he gets. If he passes his evaluation, he gets a 5% increase. And so last we checked, and we did double check with the city again yesterday, that is still his current salary. It's in the 400,000 range.
So, of course, this all comes on the occasion of there being that announcement out of the city of Frisco, Texas, that naming Gonzalez one of 3 finalists for their city manager position. And that came as a bit of a surprise to a lot of watchers here, thinking, okay, his contract still in effect till 2024. And in fact, as was noted yesterday, in April of this year, he was given the Lifetime Achievement Award by City Council. So didn't seem like things were going to be changing anytime soon. But this possibility, of course, creating a lot of, well, possibilities with the shakeup and people wondering about that here. So getting again into those end of contract terms then, at his current salary basis, yeah, it's not quite double what he was when he started here back in 2014. But that pay increase and the changes in the contract have been pretty consistent throughout. Like you said, that 5% and even more, because there have been certain jumps even right at the start of the contract within 2014 itself here. And so kind of the question mark at this point does seem to be how much then would be the benefits here, because the 1-year salary, that makes sense. But then the benefits, that's the part that well, essentially it's an HR question at that point up until we see whatever the final payout will be.
Right. So, when it comes to, we don't know how much sick time or vacation time he's accrued. We do know there is a cap on it, which is 6 months. So even though he was maybe able to accrue more than that, he wouldn't be able to get paid out for more than 6 months worth of hourly of that amount. So, he also gets a car allowance, and there's a lot of other benefits. He gets a visit to Dallas, I believe, for a doctor's visit. Right. So a lot of benefits that could also be included in this severance package that we don't necessarily know the details to.
Yeah, by my calculation, that car benefit about $6,000 a year, and it's not even just time off, but travel expenses for that medical trip to Dallas yearly for his own screening. Again, written into the contract here, so this is all part of it. So. And it's entirely possible that he could have that full 6 months here, because I do believe, based on your story and the more recent reporting as well, that he gets about 4 weeks of vacation time a year and then additional sick leave. So it's entirely possible that if he was in banking that this whole time that this could be there. But again, that's the question mark that we won't know essentially until, well, a final decision is made. Because, of course, this announcement coming out this week from that city of Frisco as a finalist here, not much talk been coming from Mr. Gonzalez himself, though, of course, a lot of your fellow reporters over there at KFOX 14 and our news partners there, a lot of talk with a lot of members of city council on this issue.
Right. So we did have one of our reporters, Liana Golden, did go to city council yesterday. She asked to speak with Tommy Gonzalez, but a city spokesperson told us that they were not talking about this at this time. She did speak with Mayor Oscar Leeser, who said, basically a contract is a contract. When I initially filed my report back in September of last year, I was able to speak with DeMargo. Oscar Leeser was not available for comment. He wouldn't give me comment on this particular story. But that was basically the same sentiment from Margo, that, it's a contract. That's what was worked in to his contract. And that's what was signed. And what was also brought up is that this was based off of market reviews of other city managers in comparable cities. The city does conduct a market-based review. It cost them $430 to do this, to basically see if their city manager is being paid correctly in comparison to other city managers. So we do know that the city of Frisco is hoping to fill their city manager position by the end of the month. So Tommy Gonzalez does have his evaluation coming up because his contract is that's discussed in June, that evaluation. So that's why we're already starting to see those talks in the work session on Monday. That was one of the items was performance reviews for the city manager and for the city attorney. Just because it's his yearly evaluation is coming up on the anniversary of his contract. And so, a lot of movement happening this month and possibly next month with the city.
Absolutely. And again, joining us right now is Stephanie Seifert, investigative reporter with our news partners over there at KFOX 14. You want to find anything about her stories or recent reporting as well, you can, of course, go to the KFOX Investigates tab, specifically for this story, the one that she did laying out all of the contract things. We want to look for El Paso city manager's contract could cost taxpayers more. This one filed against September of last year, but still, again, very relevant here today because including the all specifics that you get into, you have the actual contracts and actions by city council posted as a part of it, so people can really drill down into it if they want to see the specifics, the 12-page initial contract, the first 5-page amendment, the 3-page second amendment, and all the further ones, all the action that has technically happened in adjustment of this contract and affecting what this potential payout could be.
Correct. Yes. And you'll notice, I know yesterday Liana Golden did speak with some council members. I also reached out to them when I initially filed this report. The only one I heard back from was Representative Anelo, who back in, I believe, 2019 was one of the reps who voted against Tommy Gonzalez's renewal. Her comment was more so the question I had asked was, at the time when I filed this report, San Antonio had done, they had made a proposal to their charter, which would impose term limits on city managers, and it passed. And so my question was if that was something that city council was maybe looking to change in the city of El Paso charter. And her response was basically that that's something that came from the citizens of San Antonio. They started a petition, and that was a movement that they wanted. They wanted term limits for their city manager in San Antonio, and that's what ultimately got the ball rolling.
Okay, and so it's also interesting to point out that his salary review, as you did note there, that is happening yearly. It comes out of specific cities kind of within the region. So the comparison for that is based on, again, the specific cities here that you do have in the story that I will find here in 1 second are, among others, I think San Antonio is on that list, actually.
Arlington, Austin, Dallas, Fort Worth, Oklahoma City, Phoenix, and Tucson.
Yeah, so again, regional, but I think there might be some specific questions coming up about is that comparable, I think would be an interesting one for people to realize that here. And even then, again, there is still that 5%, not exactly guaranteed, but I don't think there has been a period of time in this review process since his employment that it has not been applied.
There in one of the amendments, he did get a pay increase, which was in lieu of the 5% performance evaluation. And it was when it was a pretty big jump. That was, I think, the only time where the 5% increase didn't go into effect, but really he got a pay raise out of it. So really he did. So yeah, you could say that it's been pretty much a guarantee that he has passed his performance evaluation every year.
So then I think the real big question in a lot of people's minds here, depending on what Frisco does and what Mr. Gonzalez decides on his own here, that the potential for whenever he does leave the city at a certain point, I mean, the question is, how much are we looking at? Because it seems the range could be somewhere between roughly $500,000 to $1 million.
Right. So regardless of whether he leaves with adequate notice or the city decides not to renew him, the city of El Paso will have to pay him.
Is there any circumstance you're aware of and looking at these where there would be a reason such as for cause or anything like that where this would not be applied, like any kind of clause like gross negligence, anything like that?
Yes, there are clauses where he can be fired if there is cause, but they are very specific. In fact, one of the amendments took out a lot of the vagueness in the contract about what probable cause could be if he was let go, and made it very specific as to what he would be able to get fired for and wouldn't be able to receive a severance package for, and that was in one of the amendments.
And it doesn't seem like anything that I've read about it, but I haven't drilled down into them quite as far as you have, certainly, that this kind of departure, whether it be for this position or any kind of similarity in the future here, none of those specific clauses would apply.
No, I mean, if he gets a position in Frisco, like he is a candidate for, as long as he gives adequate notice, he's eligible for his severance package.
Again, that 120 days from his part, and if city council decides to break off the employment on their own, that is 60 days. So, and either way, again, city on the hook then for that. Again, the slight question mark, definitely mid six figures, potentially low, seven figures here. So I'll definitely on the hook here, and leading to questions I think would be reasonable to ask about how these things are structured here. Any sense you've gotten from those involved in city council or, the people involved in these votes or even structuring this about if this has been satisfactory? I mean, you're saying like Oscar Leeser said yesterday that essentially this is what it is. The contract is what it is. But I mean, this raises questions about structuring this for the future. Any sense that you've gotten kind of almost in between the lines here, because we're still in the current situation of how towards the future this might be evaluated for, this current or potentially even future city managers?
So the feel that I got in interviewing D. Margo, who was a mayor at the time of one of his renewals of Tommy Gonzalez's contract renewals, was that this is comparable to superintendent contracts. You need to pay your employees, or what they're worth is what I got from my interview with Margo, where he feels that if city managers in other comparable cities are making close to this amount or similar to this amount, or maybe even more than this amount, then he feels that this is, kind of like what Lisa said, a contract is a contract, and all of this was negotiated between his attorney and the city's attorneys, and that's the conclusion they came to. It was voted on and it was approved, and so for them it's kind of hard to go back on that when it's already signed and sealed, so they stand by that contract.
So again, a lot of more focus happening on this. Again, guest right now, Stephanie Seifert, investigative reporter with KFOX. We're going to be talking more about this, but of course want to mention some of what you got coming up here tonight, because you do have another story coming out today on KFOX 14 News at 9, right?
Yes, tonight is a follow-up to the Las Cruces vandalism story from last week. So last week, I had talked about how there were business owners in Las Cruces who were concerned that they were seeing a lot of vandalism, a lot of break-ins at their stores. Some of them attributing it to homeless people in the area, that they're seeing a lot more homeless people on the streets. And the particular business owner I spoke with has her business on the same street of where Camp Hope is, which is a transitional living center. And so the story tonight is I spoke with the executive director of Camp Hope. She says there are a lot of misconceptions about the people who are living at Camp Hope. These are people who, maybe have lost their income, their family, have been through circumstances where they were put out on the streets, but they don't want to stay there. They want to better their life. And so they're trying to help them get into housing. And Camp Hope is a temporary housing, for them. And so it's her wanting to clear up any misconceptions of, the people who are experiencing homelessness and living at Camp Hope. And of course, there are also people who are homeless who don't qualify or aren't eligible to stay at Camp Hope because there are requirements. You can't have a background of violence, of drugs. And so maybe there are homeless people who do have a background in a criminal background and they are maybe being destructive, but that's hard to categorize that vandalism was done just solely by homeless people is basically the message she's trying to get across. So that's the follow-up for tonight, and that's at 9.
Yep. Coming up tonight on KFOX 14 News at 9. Our news partners there. Again, guest right now, Stephanie Seifert, investigative reporter with KFOX 14. Want to find out any of her previous reporting and, again, see what comes up tonight after it airs. You can find them at kfoxtv.com. Just click on that under the news tab, KFOX 14 Investigates. So thank you very much for coming and talking with us today about some of your previous reporting and, of course, what you got coming up here in your work today.
Of course, always a pleasure.
Absolutely great to have you on here. We got to take that next break right now. So coming out of this break, we'll go ahead and open up those phone lines as we usually do following these segments here. So that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olgain with your KFOX 14 News Update. A man in his late 40s was taken to a local hospital today with life-threatening injuries after a vehicle fell on him while he was working underneath it. It happened outside of a home today in Horizon City. The man was in a driveway. When the vehicle fell on top of him, police say the family reacted quickly and started CPR. Again, he was transported to Del Sol with life-threatening injuries. El Paso City Manager Tommy Gonzalez is a finalist for the same job in Frisco, Texas. That's a suburb of Dallas. The news was announced yesterday. Gonzalez has been a city manager in El Paso since 2014. He makes about $400,000 a year. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olgain.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. We continue to see a lot of sunshine and we continue to deal with a lot of wind. We are going to continue with these winds at least until about Thursday. After that, we got lighter winds for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Those winds will return next week, though. But on the flip side, we're now looking at even hotter temperatures and our possible first triple digit of the season.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
Hey, Texas, this is Eric Burton.
And I'm Adrian Casada, and we are Black Pumas. We've partnered with Don't Mess with Texas to turn up the message to keep Texas clean.
So come on, join hands and let us be united. Let's all do our part in taking care of our beautiful state roads.
It's time to step up. Together, we can keep Texas litter-free.
Don't mess with Texas, y'all. Peace.
Maybe you've had to put off a health appointment or two during the COVID-19 pandemic. But if you're 45 or older, there's one test you shouldn't put off any longer. Regular screening for colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is a leading cancer killer, but it can be prevented with regular screening starting at 45. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. It takes guts to put your health first. Ask your doctor about your options today. Visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
Talk El Paso, bringing you the big stories and impacts on the borderland every weekday at 4. Brought to you in part by Gentleman's Republic Barber Salon, official hair and beard sponsor of the show. That's Talk El Paso, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Want to learn more about cryptocurrency? Check out the Mark Moss Show podcast. Each week, Mark Moss, an investor, crypto expert, and host of the popular YouTube series, shares his knowledge as a true entrepreneur. Listen to the Mark Moss podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
I have an uncomfortable stat for you. 1 in 9 men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer. 1 in 9. In fact, prostate cancer is the second leading cause of death in American men. That hurts to hear. But you know what doesn't? There's a simple blood test your own doctor can give you to see if you're at risk. And this blood test, called the PSA, is definitely not a pain in the butt to get. Don't waste your time poking around the internet. To find out more about this test, go to pcf.org. For all the best info on prostate cancer prevention, go to pcf.org today.
Teens in foster care will love you, even if you don't know the lingo.
Dad bod, noun. The result of the occasional donut, always washed down with confidence.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council. Visit adoptuskids.org.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on our various social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, under either Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk on most of those here. Do have those phone lines open here right now, calling in right before a segment. Might have to wait on hold there for just a second and be ready to be popped up here, because that number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. And of course, a lot of comments coming in over on the social media. Not surprising, given that this is both a bit sudden, particularly when it comes to what is going on here and the situations we're dealing with. A lot of commentary, a lot of input here, a lot of comments coming in across the board. Calvin Williams, John Browson, Kathy Codry, RJ, Monica Cervantes, Rudy Rivera, Ed Clore, and more tuning in, chiming is Flauca Jimenez, Monica Cervantes, if I didn't say it already a little bit earlier. So, yeah, there's definitely a lot being brought up to here. And yeah, definitely a lot of interesting conclusions being made. John Browson asking specifically, the city manager runs everything. Why do we need a mayor and city council? What's their purpose except to go to happy hour every day? I mean, I am glad that we don't just have a city manager, because, well, city managers being hired aren't elected, because therefore the accountability to the voter is through the ballot box. So losing that link would be concerning, but that doesn't mean that there isn't therefore any other problems on the other side of this here. A lot of just encapsulating it here, well, Calvin Williams saying what a lot of people are echoing, fire the person that wrote the contract here, and also pointing out, why does the city manager need to make that much money when a very few people in the city make that or even near that amount? I mean, that's a very valid point being brought up here. And again, the comparison that has been made to other communities, I think, is at least a little bit of a part of it. But again, if you want to see that full story, I'll have it posted up over on our social media shortly. But if you go to KFOX, El Paso city manager contract could cost taxpayers more. That's the story from Estefania. Again, we'll have that posted up. But you can find out all of the many details here. And just want to clarify one thing, that this is what Mayor Leeser had to say after the meeting yesterday, essentially saying, again, according to our news partners over there at KFOX 14, quote, "It is an agreement that needs to be honored. It was a negotiation between the city manager and the prior administration, and something that was agreed upon. It is upon it as part of his contract. It's a part of the contract that we've seen, like I said prior." So again, the policy and his salary specifically has not quite doubled over his time and tenure here in El Paso since 2014, when it was just under about 240. So now being at 400 and change, low 400s, I should say here. Definitely, well, raises some questions about how these things should be structured. Flauca Jimenez with a different take on it, saying, "I don't have a problem with the salary. The question is, are we getting our money's worth with rising taxes and crumbling roads here?" Yeah, it's a valid question to be asked. I mean, any interpretation of this and questioning of it is very much the purpose of doing this kind of thing and having this discussion. So let's go back to those phone lines right now. Again, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Got a call on the line here right now. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
This is Raul.
Hey there, Raul. What's on your mind?
Well, a couple of things. El Paso Times has reported that Governor Greg Abbott's short-lived increased border inspections cost El Paso about $1.3 billion in economic output. And that's according to an analysis done by Texas economist Ray Perryman. And that during that 7-day slowdown, El Paso saw truck traffic plummet at the city's two crossings, and that slowdown at the border cost El Paso about $15 million per day in local business losses, and that's according to the El Paso Chamber of Commerce pegged the losses in the range of $100 million to $150 million in revenue, based on a survey of their members. So, Governor Greg Abbott wants to keep, and on top of this, he wants to keep secret much of the correspondence it received related to that order last month that led to that massive day-long backups of commercial trucks crossing into Texas from Mexico. And under the state's 1973 Public Information Act, myriad documents kept by government entities are presumed to be subject to required public disclosure, unless the government can cite a compelling reason to withhold that information. Commenting on that 49-year-old law, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton said that Texans have the right to see how their government is spending their tax dollars and exercising the powers they have granted it. He wrote, that knowledge is essential to preserving the rule of law and protecting the democratic process and defending the liberty we all cherish. So it sounds like this stunt that Governor Abbott did lost us a lot of money, and now he's trying to hold back this information and showing us how fake he is in terms of transparency and openness of government. Now, on the abortion thing, these anti-abortion fanatics are mostly religious fanatics, Christians and Catholics, who'd like to see the Bible replace the Constitution as the law of the land. And the problem with that, besides the fact that the Founding Fathers did not want to see a theocracy, is that there are all kinds of rights that are not mentioned and therefore not protected in the Bible. And by the way, in the Bible, they were perfectly fine with slavery, okay? Jesus didn't tell the slave to, hey, revolt and run away. He said, obey your masters. Now the problem with that is, besides the fact, is that Jesus, by the way, talking about Jesus again, he didn't mention abortion or homosexuality either, but he did prohibit divorce. So do Republicans, will they next be calling for the ending of divorce? And when a woman has a child, bringing that child to life, she also brings that child death. And no one knows when one is going to check out. And no one ever knows all the bad things that can happen to that child. Might be born with a very serious inoperable disabilities, or shot at school, or hit by a drunk driver and turned into a veg or a quadriplegic. So if you think about it, if you believe in an afterlife and in heaven with God, and that for most of the time that your soul existed, it would have been in eternity, why not just go straight to heaven with God?
Because very specifically there, suicide, a little bit frowned upon within, let's just say, most religious texts. I mean, I got to take issue with this here, because as much as there is a religious core for a lot of those that have an abortion, anti-abortion argument, there's also more pragmatic ones here that aren't just solely religiously based. Yeah, I'm not in favor of a theocracy in the United States as much as I am any kind of religious rule happening here, regardless of the denomination or the stripe of it. But the argument you're making there, it's not even just a pro-abortion argument, it's a nihilistic argument. Why live at all? Why not just go take a long walk off a short pier right now? It's destructive at its very core to argue it that way. So like saying that death exists, therefore we should all just embrace eternity right now, that's not going to fly with me. And I think that you don't even truly believe that yourself here, but you got to find something to say, I guess. I mean, seriously, that's just beyond the pale of debatability. Seriously, it's a nihilistic argument. That's all that it is, saying, well, nothing matters. Why not do as thou wilt is basically what we're getting to here. And that has its own problems. Seriously. But I mean, if you really want to talk about going to border security, your previous part here, yeah, I think Governor Greg Abbott hasn't totally repped the whirlwind yet that he has done when he sowed the lightning of this issue. And sure, there have been some calls saying, oh, well, it was a success in this kind of, 4D chess kind of way. But I mean, there's still been some issues with Abbott on the ballot before this point for the way he was essentially interfering with free markets previously. So now we have this election coming up, and I doubt there will be much breaking of ranks from him now that that gubernatorial election is pretty well set for November here. But I don't think that he is going to get off this totally scot-free without any of the repercussions. Again, as we mentioned previously, the legislative session, the work ahead of it is well in place now. So I would not be totally surprised if there aren't going to be more than a couple of things coming up through those avenues that might, have some words to be said about this specific issue when it comes to that here. But tell you what, we got to take another break here right now. So thank you for the point in the call, as much as debatability is being desired for here. But we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll get to more of the calls, comments, squeezing what we can ahead of the top of the next hour here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Of course, you're tuned in to Talk El Paso. That number to call, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
The 10 westbound is really slowed down between Sunland Park Drive and Mesa Street. It's 18-minute delays right there. There's a report of an accident, I-10 westbound at Red. Police are checking that out. I-10 eastbound at the downtown exit, Prospect Street and Wyoming Avenue. Stalled vehicles blocking the right shoulder. And an injury accident, George Dieter Drive northbound at Vista del Sol. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
Want to learn more about cryptocurrency? Check out the Mark Moss Show podcast. Each week, Mark Moss, an investor, crypto expert, and host of the popular YouTube series, shares his knowledge as a true entrepreneur. Listen to the Mark Moss podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Our homes, we protect them from intruders with security systems. But there's another kind of intruder most people aren't aware of until it's too late. Home title thieves. When a criminal transfers your home title to a fake identity and steals your title, no one will notify you. Not the police, not even your bank. Sadly, people find out when it's too late, when their home is sold out from under them, or the eviction notice comes. That's when the legal nightmare begins. You need Home Title Lock, America's leader in home title protection. For just pennies a day, Home Title Lock puts a virtual barrier of protection around your home's title with 24/7 monitoring. Cyber technology has made it easy for criminals to steal your home. Home Title Lock alerts you if your home becomes their target. Make sure you're not already a victim. Go to mytitlelock.com and for a limited time, get your free title scan and complete title report. $100 value, free with sign up. Just go to mytitlelock.com. That's mytitlelock.com.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Hey, it's Maura Courtney Lopez, and we know life is better together.
Smart Mouth mouthwash gives us the confidence to make life's moments amazing.
We are all getting together more, and Smart Mouth's 24-hour power of fresh breath with just 2 rinses a day keeps us from worrying about bad breath in those up-close moments.
Go to smartmouth.com/radio to save 20% or find Smart Mouth at your favorite store to give you confidence as we get closer to each other.
Remember to make life's moments better together with Smart Mouth at smartmouth.com/radio.
Want to learn more about cryptocurrency? Check out the Mark Moss Show podcast. Each week, Mark Moss, an investor, crypto expert, and host of the popular YouTube series, shares his knowledge as a true entrepreneur. Listen to the Mark Moss podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of ways to get at the show. Tons of comments on the, well, let's just say ever so slightly important issues we're talking about here today. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk on all of those. Also have that phone line open right now. If you wanted to call in that way, the number to do so, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Calling in the middle of the segment might take a minute to get with you. You'll be put on hold briefly, and we'll maybe pop you up. So just be Johnny on the spot with it, and we'll be good to go here. A lot of comments here. Amira comment on the city manager issue that of saying that if he, Tommy Gonzalez here, I am not referring to the congressman from the Texas 23rd Congressional District, even if their names are too similar for my liking and I occasionally say the wrong thing. Tommy Gonzalez, El Paso's city manager, saying that if he does not leave now for Frisco, this would be an opportunity to negotiate the terms and benefits, such as a car, medical care in Dallas, etc. His annual performance evaluation is the time to discuss rates. How effective can he be if most here never heard of him? I mean, one of the points is to be behind the scenes, I do suppose, but anytime this comes up, and particularly the compensation before this point, it was a little bit obscure for a lot of people here. But let's get to those phone lines right now. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Kevin on the east side here with us right now. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Andrew. This issue has been raised already, I apologize. I try to catch your show every day for the full time it's on. Yesterday, and for a good part of this morning, 6:90 a.m. was garbled. I don't know if this has been brought up, and it came on fine on the internet. However, on regular radios, I have 3 different ones, so it's not any of the instruments I'm using.
Correct.
It probably should be the station, I would imagine, and I'd like to know if that was addressed and if it's being taken care of. You sound good now.
Yeah. So to my full understanding, we did mention this a little bit at the top of the program here that, we're aware that there are technical issues here, essentially where you're pointing to there in between our studio and the transmission site, because on social media, online, and all the digital ways we go out these days, including through the app, free and clear, I've been checking that myself here. So engineers have been working on it. We've seemed like if things were fixed there for a minute and then coming back. So they're still working on it, to my understanding. As soon as there's a concrete fix and answer, once we're sure it'll be clear, we'll be sure to mention that further on air. But appreciate you sticking with us and sticking around with it in the meantime.
Thank you very much, Andrew.
I appreciate it here. I mean, we do appreciate the points in the call on this point here, particularly yours there as well. But I mean, if you're noticing issues with it, sometimes it might be an area of town. I know there's a water tower a few years ago that was literally interfering with the signal because of the physics involved with this kind of a thing here. So literally, y'all letting us know what's going on with it and how you're receiving it in your area is important. So do appreciate it when you can here. But yes, in short, aware of the issue. Our engineers are working on it and hope to have a fix here shortly. I haven't been given a definable ETA because there's still a little bit of a whack-a-mole going on, to my understanding, diagnosing the exact problem, but we'll be back on and still in all the ways we can here. Again, if you don't have the iHeartRadio app and you have the ability to download, have a smart device, would fully recommend it, because then you can get us regardless and bring us with you wherever you go. Even if you got Bluetooth then or wireless in your car, you can connect it directly. So you've got us no matter the circumstance here. But tell you what, that's going to take us through the bottom of the hour here right now. We got to take that next break. Coming out of the break, we'll get to more calls, comments, and all that good stuff on the line here. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM after the top of the hour news. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
The 10 westbound is really slowed down between Sunland Park Drive and Mesa Street. It's 18-minute delays right there. There's a report of an accident, I-10 westbound at Red. Police are checking that out. I-10 eastbound at the downtown exit, Prospect Street and Wyoming Avenue. Stalled vehicles blocking the right shoulder. And an injury accident, George Dieter Drive northbound at Vista del Sol. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
On the new true crime podcast, Betrayal, a woman chronicles her fairy tale romance gone horribly wrong. When her seemingly perfect husband's secret life is uncovered, it destroys her marriage, shakes their community, and ultimately sends him to prison.
Going through Spence's emails, Snapchat, whatever I could get my hands on, just a punch in the gut every single time.
Listen to Betrayal on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Are you wondering if the COVID vaccine is right for your child? If you can trust it. My name is Dr. Moira Salaji. I'm the president of the American Academy of Pediatrics. And we want you to know it's important for all children 5 and over to get a COVID vaccine because we know millions of cases of COVID have been in kids. You can trust the COVID vaccine for yourself and for your kids. I do.
We can do this. Find a vaccine near you at vaccines.gov, paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Widespread racism against the Asian American and Pacific Islander community is a serious and devastating issue that is impacting the lives of millions every day. It's up to all of us to stand up, speak out, and put an end to this racism. Stop AAPI Hate is a national coalition that tracks incidents of hate and discrimination against the AAPI community across the United States. To report a hate incident or to learn more about what you can do to help, visit stopaapihate.org now.
News on the hour and the hat. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Vice President Harris says the failed Senate vote on protecting abortion access doesn't reflect the greater opinion of all Americans.
Sadly, the Senate failed to stand in defense of a woman's right to make decisions about her own body.
The vice president said extremist Republican leaders are attempting to punish women from making decisions about their bodies. The vote was 49-51. The measure aimed to lock in federal protections for abortion rights. Wall Street is closing with stocks much lower as investors digest the latest inflation data. Last month's consumer price index showed an 8.3% jump year over year, higher than what was projected. The price surge around the country stayed near the 40-year high pace. A top U.S. general says Russia's use of hypersonic weapons in Ukraine is not having significant or game-changing effects. Joint Chiefs Chairman Mark Milley said this is the first time hypersonic weapons have ever been used in combat. Leaky fuel hoses are causing Hyundai to recall over 215,000 vehicles. Lisa Taylor reports.
The issue affects 2013 and 2014 Sonatas, which were also previously recalled for the same issue in 2020. Back then, dealers only replaced hoses that were cracked. They'll now replace all hoses, even if there isn't any damage. I'm Lisa Taylor.
Comedian Andy Dick is facing felony sexual battery charges after being arrested in an RV in Southern California. The actor was arrested Wednesday during a live stream from a trailer in Orange County. He allegedly assaulted an adult male. Next week's Preakness Stakes in Baltimore will feature a rematch between surprise Kentucky Derby winner Rich Strike and runner-up Epicenter. Epicenter's handlers confirmed the colt will run in the May 21st Preakness, the middle jewel of horse racing's Triple Crown. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. The chief financial officer at Moderna has abruptly resigned. The pharmaceutical company says Jorge Gomez left when news of an internal affairs investigation into financial reporting at his former job surfaced. He had just assumed the CFO position at Moderna on Monday. A state investigation into alleged drug smuggling by detention officers at a jail in Northeast Georgia is entering its second year.
The Georgia Bureau of Investigation started assisting in an internal investigation of the Athens-Clarke County Jail last May. The inquiry was initially launched in early 2021 after reports of detention officers smuggling illegal substances into the jail for members of the Bloods gang. According to Britannica, the Bloods are a street gang based in Los Angeles, allegedly involved in drugs, theft, and murder, among other criminal activities. The Athens Banner-Herald reported the GBI had not issued any additional information, only saying they're still looking into the case. I'm Liz Kennedy.
A medical scare in the sky turns passenger into hero. Natalie Rodriguez reports.
Air traffic controllers at Palm Beach International Airport stepping in to guide an inexperienced passenger to safely land a plane. That passenger radioed for help after reporting the pilot became incoherent. Luckily, air traffic controllers were able to track the Cessna Caravan coming in from the Abacos on radar and coach that passenger down. The identity of the passenger is not known, nor the condition of the actual pilot.
A mystery man is being called Santa Claus after raining money on shoppers at a New Jersey mall. It was Christmas on Mother's Day at the Freehold Raceway Mall this past Sunday. A bearded man with a smile on his face was showering money on shoppers, literally tossing it into the air from the second floor. Naturally, some folks sprang into action, scooping up the free cash. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now, your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Fun. That's fun. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
Want to learn more about cryptocurrency? Check out the Mark Moss Show podcast. Each week, Mark Moss, an investor, crypto expert, and host of the popular YouTube series, shares his knowledge as a true entrepreneur. Listen to the Mark Moss podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Scotty Clark from Scott Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing. Did you realize your home's HVAC system operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year? At Scott Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing, we're conveniently open 7 days a week at the same hourly rate. So for professional quality service, call Scott Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing day or night for a job done right at 595-4529. 595-4529.
Sure, you can use your phone to call a radio station, but iHeartRadio's revolutionized the way you talk to us. Introducing the TalkBack mic inside the free iHeartRadio app. Here's how to use it. Just listen to your favorite iHeartRadio station on the app. When you have something to say, tap the TalkBack mic and record your message. You can even listen back to make sure your message sounds perfect. After all, it could end up on the radio. Talk to your favorite iHeartRadio stations with one tap, only on the free iHeartRadio app.
iHeartRadio. Because you never hear this.
Hey, hon, I'm late. Chris, I am so pleased you missed the beginning of our meeting.
Thanks for making me wait, Dad. I talked to a lot of strangers.
Check on your commute. Stay informed. Traffic and weather all day. Or you might never hear the end of it.
Well, you were late to our anniversary dinner that one time.
Yes, how could I forget?
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Find us under most of those places because, well, the entire point is to be where the people are, where the conversation's happening, and hopefully get more people involved in talking about the things impacting us here in the borderland, because no one else is going to talk about these issues the way we do, the people who live there and are affected by them. So a lot of comments coming into that point here, and calls coming in as well. If you're wanting to get on the line there, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. And a whole lot of comments on all this issues here. Maria comments saying most recently, I remember Lisa making a campaign statement wanting to limit the power of the city manager. Maybe this position and contract should be on the ballot. The days of clandestine negotiations should be a relic of days gone by. If we have to pay the city manager's salary, we need to have a say in the decision. Now, of course, this was voted on by previous city councils. Again, 2014 when it was first established, and then there was the re-up in 2019. So we got a couple different sets of city council representatives and mayors to be talked about here, most certainly. And this current contract, just to put it in perspective, in place until 2024, technically. The one for, again, Tommy Gonzalez here. We posted up the link to the full report from, again, Stephanie Seifert with our news partners over there at KFOX 14. Thanks again to her for coming to talk to us today about that. If you want to see the link to that, we have it posted up over there right now. Calvin Williams saying a little bit earlier, any city employee or elected official that makes more than $200,000 a year is making too much. And more discussion on some parts about this. One of the other things brought up here, including the border issues and specifically Governor Greg Abbott's most recent-ish, I guess, because things continue to evolve all the time, with the extra inspections being done by state troopers, saying that right or wrong, Abbott is rightfully trying to solve a problem that is Biden's job to solve but won't. I mean, yeah, there's an argument to be made there that has been very much the kind of the cornerstone of everything that is going on with border security and what specifically the state of Texas has been doing about it here. So interesting points being made there. And Kathy Codry pointing out that pretty close. Yeah, Gonzalez' salary is the same as the president of the United States salary. I want to say that the POTUS salary is a little bit closer to, I think, like mid 450s, but it's been a minute since I checked here. Because yeah, it is 400,000. You're absolutely right. So perspective, I guess you could say. Another way to think about it is that the city of El Paso is essentially a billion-dollar corporation that has one heck of a revenue feed, but also abilities to, issue further stock, I should say, bonds specifically. So let's just say the concept of city manager form of government makes a level of sense in that you have a formalization and a professionalization of what otherwise may be seen as solely political positions, because sure, there were, some city staff that would still be potentially subject to the whims or currents of politics when a new representative or a new, council or mayor came in. So at its core, there's something there. And I think that's why El Pasoans voted for that when they did, to change from, again, the strong mayor form of government into this format that we've had for a better part of a decade and a half now, by my reckoning. But there are still issues, shall we say. And furthermore, there are definitely reviews happening of all of this. We have mentioned offhand a couple of times. And one thing that Estefania did just make, RJ also pointing out that president does make millions after with books and speeches, a fund for their presidential library. So, there are certainly differences in scale here. I'll fully agree with you on that. But something that Estefania mentioned that stuck with me was that question she had asked from, I believe it was Representative Anello, about an item coming out of, San Antonio, about term limits, effectively, or limits on the time in the position, I guess would be a more accurate way to put it, since there's no term of office. They're not elected to office when it comes to city managers. And the point being made there is that was a, citizen initiative, essentially, that people came together and did that. And that's not outside of the bounds of reality here either. I mean, there have, the most recent one that comes to mind would be the Lost Dog Trail, I want to say, is a citizen initiative that pushed through, got on the ballot, and ultimately ended up succeeding, preventing further development happening there. Now, what we're now calling Northwest El Paso, not too far off from the Cimarron development. If you keep following Wrestler, essentially, all the way around, turns into that, and then ends up back down on I-10 once you go past Westtown. So that little corner curve over there, not to be developed now, even though it was city land, and, citizens pushed it through. So similar kind of thing happening with there in San Antonio, but relating to, among other things, the city manager position, but more specifically, and frankly, it may be a little bit more accessible right now, as opposed to completely bootstrapping a new effort. If people are interested in this, there is, of course, that ad hoc charter advisory committee. We referenced it a little bit earlier this week, and we've had some people chime in that have, had their input and even seats on this previously. Now, currently, some of these proposals put on there, I don't really believe end up going into this here. There is some things about things for like a chief of staff or district employees for specific representatives. Another one that has been discussed, though maybe not totally in place, will be actually maybe a further weakening of the mayor's role within city government to change it so that there's no longer a veto, but rather a vote, just a straight vote when it comes into it. So there's more commentary coming online there over on the YouTube as well about the role of presidents here. Again, if you want to jump into those conversations, you can do so. They rage throughout the entirety of our show here. Facebook.com/Talk El Paso is the main one, but that's where the Skeptic Squad lives anyway, and the Thunderdome of comments shows up just about every day. But also over on the YouTube, we got a couple comments coming in there, and also with a dash of corruption, RJ adding on. But again, if you want to call us in, you prefer to do it that way, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. But the point being made here that, there's already some potential changes for how city council operates, and specifically the role of the mayor within the progression of those meetings and such, that is possible here, being discussed, and will eventually, this avenue, this ad hoc charter advisory committee, will specifically then end up going to city council and them going through these. Now, there are further meetings that are still coming up, basically all the way through June here, so don't forget that will be coming. And if you're wanting to make sure you get in on them, elpasotexas.gov/ad-hoc-charter-advisory-committee. Well, I'll try to post this up here in just a minute, so you don't have to try to make sure you've got exactly what exactly that written down after just having been read off of the radio here. But I mean, there are those proposed amendments. Take a look for yourself on what they are, what you think might be good, including changing of the initiative petition process, benchmarking purposes. I mean, there's a lot of interesting possibilities there. And this, to my understanding, now this is a little bit more of a formalized process. You have to be going through its correct steps, but really there's no simple way to do this than just say, hey, we should make this happen. Okay, let's make this happen, without it being something coming up from the city council member themselves, essentially. Now, to a previous point that was asked about, okay, if this is doesn't end up leaving for Frisco, the current El Paso city manager, maybe this will be a time during one of those performance reviews to reevaluate. That has been a previous frustration from those in the audience, essentially, when it has come up previously, because the performance review, as we discussed and mentioned with Stefania, has never not resulted in some form of pay increase. Maybe not strictly speaking the 5%, because there were jumps well above that previously. One of the first ones, I want to say, took it from that about $200,000 range into the $300,000 range, and has been on point ever since on that same trajectory. So, and as much as there has been times when it has been previously brought up about dissatisfaction with, again, the professional side of city government, so to speak, it has not exactly been something that has actually been put into place that way. Essentially, the performance reviews, there was a little bit of contention, I do recall, a couple of years back, pre-pandemic anyway, and essentially it came down that, no, this still has to go through. One of those, if I'm remembering it totally correctly, because I want to say, heck, I might have still been involved in the actual reporting on city council meetings, which, as I think Barbara mentioned yesterday, it's a day. That's your whole day. That's all you're doing that day. Even if you've got one thing you want to talk about, invariably, because it was just my, I guess, mildly paranoid kind of circumstance. If there's one thing that I was like, okay, this is the thing we're going to report on today, it would be last, because of course it would, because the most contentious things tend to get pushed down on the ballot here. Again, just my personal paranoia, I guess, more than anything. But seriously, it would take you all day. So it's not an easy process to sit through here. And I'm sure there'll be more analysis coming out about this in this whole situation. But I do recall, and having sat through some of those, that essentially it was one of those situations where city council said, okay, we got to discuss this, and then went into that executive session. If there's a phrase that I have a lot of feelings about, it's executive session, because sure, it is strictly a power that is allowed for local governments to be able to discuss contracts, things that if they were totally publicly available before a decision is made, could put them at a disadvantage, could essentially cost us more money, etc. There's a reason for it. But let's do a tale of two elected bodies here real quick. Because the way the city does it is that they go into a room that, if you're facing the front of it, if you've ever been to city council chambers or looked in on one of their meetings, they got that whole metal thing, art piece, I don't know what the correct way to describe it is, behind the mayor. They're kind of in that L-shaped crook of the actual city council main desk area. And then you'll get up, go off to the left if you're facing towards it, and off a little door off to the side, there's a whole other room there where they have these and can be in there for hours and hours and hours. And it's one of the most frustrating things, because you have no idea what's going back there. And I have it on good authority, there's catering and bathrooms back there. So there's no real, except for the fact that they can't take action back there, they can't do final votes back there, to come out and actually come back in front of people. Again, maybe just me paranoid here, but let's just say then on the county side of things, El Paso County, as much as there may be issues with that as well, they don't leave their chambers. They kick everyone else out of the chambers, and they stay in there on their dais and in full view of everything. So I'm sure there might be like lip reading implications that I don't think anyone's actually tried, but they're there. They're stuck there and in full view. And let's just say the literal transparency implications are, well, I'll let you make your own decision and conclusion on that here. A whole lot more conversation going on here. I'll have to get into that and a whole lot more after this break here, including some of the other major items of the day we're talking about. More on this after this break on here on Talk El Paso. Again, if you're wanting to chime in with your own 2 cents on the phone line, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned. if you're looking at keeping yourself well groomed, because I know as we're doing a whole lot more in person than, well, recent times here, you can't just rely on the Zoom filter you've been using potentially. But getting out and about, that's something I've been really cherishing the ability and increased availability of having. And, well, you got to make sure you look good. So what I trust with all the hair on my head, Gentleman's Republic Barber Salon and Men's Spa. Find them online at gentsrepublic.com or call them right now, Gents Republic at 915-532-3000. Again, 915-532-3000, and schedule your appointment because, well, they do get a bit busy. So make sure it's convenient for you and schedule ahead of time. I've already got my next one planned because that's just how we do it. I mean, they are, of course, the official hair and beard sponsor of the show, but that's not just because they wanted that. It's because I've gone to them for years now. Literally had my bachelor party there because of the great way that you can truly feel like a king for a day. And so don't forget about Father's Day coming up. They've got their services, gift cards, and a whole lot more as possible here. Even a line of products to really help, the special man in your life, particularly that dad, you feel like a real special guy. So go on there, get your appointment for all of their expert hair and beard grooming services, gentsrepublic.com or 915-532-3000.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
We got a crash on I-10 westbound before Mesa Street that is really slowing traffic. I-10 westbound's been slow for a while. From Sunland Park to Mesa, you've got about an 18-minute delay right now. It's I-10 westbound at Paisano. Another crash there is blocking the entrance and exit ramp. The backup is to Geronimo, and El Paso police are on the scene. Montana Avenue downtown at Stanton, another accident reported. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
It's a grand in your hand.
$1,000.
No NFTs or ESGs. It's $1,000 straight to you.
That is awesome.
Listen every hour from 9 through 5 weekdays for your chance to win.
A grand in your hand is brought to you by Approved Auto. Drive out in your new ride in less than an hour. Get payments as low as $159 a month. Worried about your credit? Don't sweat it. If you got your license and you got a job, they smell a deal. The deals are sweeter at Approved Auto, 8498 Alameda.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's $5 Biggie Bag. Wendy's Biggie Bag is still just $5. Get a double stack junior bacon cheeseburger or crispy chicken BLT plus 4-piece nugs, small fries, and a small drink. Grab your bag at Wendy's today. U.S. price and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Alaska and Hawaii.
My mom turned 65 last year, and let me tell you, helping her get her Medicare benefits squared away was not easy. She had so many choices for coverage, and most agents she spoke with just left her feeling overwhelmed and confused. She tried to do some research on her own, but Mom isn't the most tech-savvy person out there, so it was hard for her to make sense of the provider websites and paperwork. When she asked me for help, I found Chapter, and they made both of our lives so much easier. They compare thousands of Medicare plans and help seniors choose the best plan for their needs. Mom spoke to one of their advisors, and she walked her through every step of the process. Now she's on a great plan, and we both can relax. And the best part? Chapter was 100% free.
If you or your loved one wants to maximize their Medicare benefits, give Chapter a call today. 800-449-8577. Call today. 800-449-8577. That's 800-449-8577. Chapter Medicare.
And Doug. Chances are you're jamming in your car right now. And since Liberty Mutual customizes car insurance so you only pay for what you need, Limu and I are going to show you some safe car dance moves. Hit it. Everybody, check your blind spots real quick. Now hands on the wheel. Put them 10 in 2 and move your head like a bird do. Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Now Martha Stewart for Skechers.
When I make a dish or embark on a craft project, I always use the finest, most fabulous ingredients and materials. Which is why, when it comes to footwear, I love Skechers. Because Skechers is the comfort technology company and uses the most luxurious, innovative materials and designs to make wondrously comfortable footwear with all the fits and features like Arch Fit and Skechers' world-famous air-cooled memory foam. It's exactly the way I'd make shoes.
Find Skechers at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Places you can find us under either Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk is the names to search up there. A lot of comments coming in there, also dropping those reacts. We do appreciate Ion Grimm, Calvin Williams, Blanca Jimenez, Robbie Flores, and Monica Cervantes. Definitely do appreciate it. It helps with the algorithm stuff and just are continuing our mission to have live local talk radio here in the borderland and talking about the issues that matter to us and affect us right where we live. So, yeah, fair is fair. Calvin Williams definitely got me right before the break saying here, stop being paranoid. If everyone is really out to get you, then it's just hashtag facts here. Catherine Codry asking an actual question here. Who is the superior that the city manager answers to? It's a very good question, and technically, contractually, I guess you could say, it is city council. So mayor most directly, but the city manager, strictly speaking, is an employee of city council. Now, the whole way we changed the charter and all that stuff to change from, again, the strong mayor form of government to this now has delineated certain things. And, well, this contract even further has put them into place. As we said, again, thanks to Estefania from laying out her background and FOIA requests into that. Laying out that, yes, there are certain clauses that may or may not be in place, may have been weakened as such over time based on changes to it here. I mean, there is clearly competition for city managers and certain other positions here, but I want to say it's probably one of the more impacting positions that you just don't end up hearing that much about because, among other things, it's not on the ballot, so there's no campaigning going on for it. It is a decision of city council, but that is in place there unless there's a cause for many years. Again, the current one reauthorized in 2019, in place through 2024. Yeah, this spans administrations, clearly. So, just from my analysis, and this is based on nothing besides what I have seen, that I have sometimes been in city council meetings, technically in previous sets of city councilors. I don't think there's anyone still on there from the last time that this happened. May or may not be. I might be misremembering. But the amount of times that I saw it happen where city council would say that they have a position on certain things and then essentially be told, because the other position that often gets talked along with the head of it here and their own, shall we say, influence on the process is also the city attorney. And that one and that salary has also come up in certain ways, but quite not as focused on it right now. But okay, the way it's supposed to work, to my understanding and my reading of the charter, is that essentially city council, the mayor, the elected officials are supposed to set the agenda for city business. They are the ones that make the decisions, and then the city manager side of things takes it over, puts it in place, makes it happen. Essentially, you can kind of, this is not the best analogy ever, but to kind of give you a rough idea, that essentially city council is the legislature and then city manager is then executive without any kind of presidential authority, though. They simply follow through with it. So think of the executive branch without a presidential head. Closest thing you could think of might be the city manager, but again, doesn't have technically any policy authority, just following the dictates of what comes out of city council. But, and this is a pretty big but here, Sir Mix-a-Lot style, because what you're looking at and what I've seen literally happen is that city council and the individual members will have positions that they are avowed on and they are discussing and they're talking about, will then say, okay, well, we have to go in executive session to discuss this, or get called into executive session essentially by either the city manager or city attorney saying, well, we've got some things we need to discuss with you. So there being robust discussion happened on at least one occasion that I was there for. Don't remember exactly the issue because that's what not really impressed me the most. It was what happened with it. Very much coming out in one position, called into executive session, and then brought back out, and with no real further discussion, taking a final vote on it, going in, well, essentially the opposite way that it seemed to have gone before. So that was impressive to me in not the positive sense, because it leads to the question of, okay, so what is informing who here? Because if we don't have essentially, city council members saying, this is what we want you to do, and we need you to then execute on it, bring us to these plans. I mean, that happens plenty of times saying, among other things, the plan for the whole reevaluation of the arena area, Duranguito, South El Paso, north of Paisano, all that stuff. Yes, instruction was given to the city manager to come up with that plan. And even with that slightly more complex and controversial issue when it comes to the that women's rights board that was voted on by El Paso City Council yesterday, that instruction has now been given to the city manager to establish it and look at possibilities, essentially. Now that, is the issue aside, now going to the core substance of what that issue is, but the functionality I'm referring to here is how it's supposed to work. But the fact that there is a little bit more backflow, I guess you could say, is concerning to me, because that's, to my reading and again understanding, not really how it's supposed to work. But, well, not privy to some of these discussions here. Barbara Kardowski letting us know it was a busy day as well. Kathy Cordry, I hope that explanation worked out for you. But again, we do have that phone line open here. I know we're going on into some in-depth issues, but we will take those calls. That number to do so, 915-544-5876, 915-544 KTSM. Tell you what, let's go ahead and take that break right now. Coming out of the break, we'll get to more of those calls, comments, and all this good stuff on the line here, because we're not even just talking about city council and the city manager today, though we're definitely getting in depth on it. We got a whole lot more we'll get to, so revisiting on some of those topics after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olgain with your KFOX 14 news update. A man in his late 40s was taken to a local hospital today with life-threatening injuries after a vehicle fell on him while he was working underneath it. It happened outside of a home today in Horizon City. The man was in a driveway. When the vehicle fell on top of him, police say the family reacted quickly and started CPR. Again, he was transported to Del Sol with life-threatening injuries. El Paso City Manager Tommy Gonzalez is a finalist for the same job in Frisco, Texas. That's a suburb of Dallas. The news was announced yesterday. Gonzalez has been a city manager in El Paso since 2014. He makes about $400,000 a year. This has been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olgain.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
We got a crash on I-10 westbound before Mesa Street that is really slowing traffic. I-10 westbound's been slow for a while. From Sunland Park to Mesa, you've got about an 18-minute delay right now. It's I-10 westbound at Paisano. Another crash there is blocking the entrance and exit ramp. The backup is to Geronimo, and El Paso police are on the scene. Montana Avenue downtown at Stanton, another accident reported. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. We continue to see a lot of sunshine and we continue to deal with a lot of wind. We are going to continue with these winds at least until about Thursday. After that, we got lighter winds for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Those winds will return next week, though. But on the flip side, we're now looking at even hotter temperatures and our possible first triple digit of the season.
This report is sponsored by Mothers Against Drunk Driving at mad.org.
Have you or someone you know been impacted by a drunk or drugged driving crash? MAD is here to help. At MAD, they provide services at no cost for the victims, like emotional, judicial, and access to financial support. Call 1-877-MAD-HELP.
From the host of the hit true crime podcast, Dr. Death and Bad Batch, comes a brand new unbelievable story. Sympathy Pains investigates the shocking tale of one woman, a former nurse, who spent nearly 20 years faking illnesses and tragedies until her victims confronted her on national television.
Sarah DeLashmit told people she had leukemia or muscular dystrophy, even Ebola. She knew enough to be convincing, but it was all a lie.
Listen to Sympathy Pains on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Maybe you've had to put off a health appointment or two during the COVID-19 pandemic. But if you're 45 or older, there's one test you shouldn't put off any longer. That's your regular screening for colorectal cancer. Colorectal cancer is the leading cancer killer, but can be prevented with regular screenings starting at age 45. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. It takes guts to put your health first. Ask your doctor about your options today and visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
Want to learn more about cryptocurrency? Check out the Mark Moss Show podcast. Each week, Mark Moss, an investor, crypto expert, and host of the popular YouTube series, shares his knowledge as a true entrepreneur. Listen to the Mark Moss podcast on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
Standing up for what's right. Helping out when things go wrong. Seeking the truth and speaking our minds. Not just making records, but breaking them. Leading the way behind the camera beyond the runway, and on the silver screen. Not just making our mark, but making a difference. Now that's a job for a Girl Scout. Girl Scouts, preparing girls for a lifetime of leadership.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in. However you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of comments and reactions coming in there. Do appreciate them. Ion Grimm, Calvin Williams, Clark Jimenez, Robbie Flores, and Monica Cervantes dropping those reacts. They help with all the algorithmic stuff here, but a lot of commentary as well. Clark Jimenez saying that on City Council that basically they're like a board of directors. And that's a way to consider it, though. Should be a little bit more involved, essentially, here. And, well, sometimes when there has been more involvement, that's where there have been some issues, shall we say, some individuals getting into trouble here. Then we got a comment kind of on that point saying the role of elected officials is to represent their constituents and their best interests, not utilize their position as a vehicle to promote their personal agenda. So kind of on the same vein here, but a lot more commentary coming in about that. I have invariably at certain points been accused of never being happy with the city, and sure, I've got my issues with it here, but I mean, there are certain good things that happen, certain things I like happen. Just well, as is with any kind of news programming, those don't usually get focused on that much. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, I guess the way to put it. I mean, City Council declaring Mental Health Awareness Month here, very much in favor of that. Just when it comes down to the real substantive stuff and the very basic things that City Council and any municipality are supposed to be really focused on, you know, the ability to have roads, public services, those kind of things. I mean, there's reason for and realm and room for criticism, absolutely here. But let's go back to those phone lines right now. Again, the number to call, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. We do have Jerry on the northwest side of town here with us right now. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew, taking my call. I'm worried about Raul. He sounds a little bit more upset than normal. I'm just wondering if some of his friends might want to take a welfare check on him. Hopefully he has no guns in the house. So, you know, maybe somebody could call and find out if he's okay, because he sure sounds like self-inflicting wounds.
Well, let's just say that we know the phone line's working for sure there.
Yeah. So, you know, one of his friends out there to live in the row, we care about you, even though we know that you're mentally ill. We do care about you. Thank you, Andrew. Have a good day.
Oh, sure thing. Thank you for the point in the call there, I guess. I mean, again, as much tongue-in-cheek as can be had here, I find myself not liking the idea of armchair quarterbacking anyone's mental health status. Again, we take a lot of commentary and issues on this show here, and we do, keep it as an open forum for people to comment as they see fit here. So we'll continue doing that for the foreseeable future here. One of the other issues we were discussing a little bit earlier is that what was going on, of course, with some of those shortages. And of course, what's going on with, the baby formula really just affecting me. One of the other comments that actually came up earlier, John Brazelton on the city manager thing, saying that, of course, during the COVID crisis, the city laid off employees rather than fire them, saying that in his analysis, that way they couldn't file for unemployment. Maybe that's why the city manager got a 5% raise. Again, the 5% raise has been wrote regardless, but the analysis of that, particularly when it comes down to this or really any of the other, major, head of corporation kind of positions here, though. Of course, this is different here as a local government, but the idea of, okay, is the top person really worth that many people that otherwise could have been in place given that salary or those resources, and particularly in sharp focus when it comes to the people who were laid off. But again, that other situation involving, again, the baby formula, I don't even have anyone in my immediate life that has a need of this right now. Have some, friends that, co-workers, that kind of thing, who have had a need but have been not totally recently, mostly out of that phase. But for those that are still have, serious concerns with it, one of the questions are about, built-in equipment for it. Why not rely on that? There also used to be wet nurses. and that is not exactly as prevalent of a solution anymore. So I know that at least one of those, there was that plant mentioned there, NBC out of Boston, local station there, saying that there actually is being allowed, Michigan, actually, where it's coming out of, saying that it's going to be allowed to restart in limited case-by-case basis. So hopefully it resolves, but still, heart goes out. And I know at least one person posted up a potential workaround recipe here. Not familiar enough with that to comment on it, if it works or not, but I know there's some of that going around as a potential way to do it. All I can say is that this is just kind of continuing to prove the situation that we're in right now, as we're still looking at, there's the talk about inflation maybe capping out now while still going up, that essentially the rise in inflation may be done with, which still means that inflation is still continuing at pretty high levels. And of course, what is also then going on with other supplies, gas back up high, saw up $4.20 down the street from our station here, even though I didn't really want to look at it. The best advice I can give you is just take care of you and yours and make sure you're stocked up. Now, with things like baby formula, I'm in a non-critical life-sustaining situation with most of my supplies here outside of basic food, but I've got other choices there. So different situation, but it's just the best thing I can say for really any of these issues is make sure you've got what you need on hand, because this, again, just kind of proves it and shows it that there is definitely a lot of still disruption. The system has taken a whack, the global supply system, like never before, and the hits keep coming. Sure, the whole Russian invasion of Ukraine may not be a 100% justification for all of this, the impact we're still feeling to this system, but it hasn't exactly helped much, if at all. Europe, I'm just glad we're not relying on those pipelines that they are. I didn't even realize until hearing a report today that some of those pipelines pumping Russian gas and oil are still going through Ukraine, except for where, fighting essentially cuts them off here. So could be worse. Still in a better situation than some here, but that doesn't mean that there isn't reason to at least talk about the problems we are seeing here. So that's why really best advice I can give you is make sure you've got what you need and maybe a little bit extra. Seriously, I'm going on kind of the idea of a 3-month supply of soap, toiletries. Don't go out and buy all the toilet paper again, because 3 months of that is probably less than probably a lot more than you think it is if you need to buy all of it. And just you kind of batten down the hatches is kind of a good way to keep it here, and what I kind of personally consider as part of this. So I know the formula, it's a rough situation. There's just no other way about it. And for those wondering where to get it, I've seen people posting in groups saying, we need to, saying time to return to breastfeeding. We've had on certain groups in the recent past, such as the Borderland Breastfeeding Coalition, that actually has had an event either coming up or has happened here recently. And the idea of that being a primary choice is still influential for me anyway. Various situations different, but the idea of therefore formula being primary, I find I do have an issue with. But for those that need it, there is no other substitute. Unless, again, you got a wet nurse handy, but I'm not sure what the state of that supply is. I kind of consider that as a term like midwife, which I know has made somewhat of a comeback here in the recent, end of last century, beginning of this one, but still, there are reasonable issues to bring up with this here. And just keep it on your toes, keep watching out for what you need to. Takis have been back in stock, so I've been happy about that. But again, I don't live solely off of Takis, so, mileage may vary. Let's go and take that next break right now. Barbara Carrasco bringing up that, Europe was blocking Russian oil. Yes, that is something being looked at. But, let's just say that Germany specifically, was one of the last holdouts saying, we will get off of it in increasingly short timelines, but it's still flowing in the meantime. And of course, pipelines that are still even running through Ukraine are going to, other places than just Europe. So supply side shocks probably going to continue apace here, and in ways that going to be real hard to predict here. But we're going to take that last break of the hour here. Come back, tell you what we got coming up next show, squeezing those last calls, comments, and such, and a whole lot more. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, if you want to get on the line, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A couple of crashes slowing El Paso freeway traffic right now. I-10 westbound at Paisano Drive. That crash has blocked the entrance and exit ramp. There's a backup to Geronimo. On the westbound I-10 before Mesa Street, an accident there is slowing traffic. 10-minute delays between Sunland Park and Mesa Street. And downtown, an injury accident, Oregon Street at 4th Avenue. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Mothers Against Drunk Driving at mad.org.
Have you or someone you know been impacted by a drunk or drugged driving crash? MAD is here to help. At MAD, they provide services at no cost for the victims, like emotional, judicial, and access to financial support. Call 1-877-MAD-HELP.
When I turned 65, I wasn't sure just how to go about getting my Medicare benefits. I tried to look things up on my own, but the websites were so confusing. I wasn't sure what plan or carrier would be best for me. But then I found Chapter, and they made everything so easy for me. Chapter compares thousands of Medicare insurance plans nationwide, and they were able to recommend the best plan for my needs. My advisor was so helpful, he helped me find a plan that covered my doctors and had an affordable monthly premium. I'm saving hundreds of dollars a year, and I get better coverage than my previous plan. And best of all, talking to my Chapter advisor was completely free.
If you're turning 65 or already 65, you too can maximize your Medicare benefits. Call Chapter today at 800-455-3498 to speak to an advisor. That's 800-455-3498, because the best side of 65 should be your best Chapter yet.
Okay, ladies, we all know one of the greatest feelings in the world when you get together with a friend and she says, "Girl, those pants look amazing on you." But even though I'm happy dancing inside, I just play it cool and say, "Thanks, they're Skechers Go Walk Wear pants." And why do I always get compliments on these casual, athletic, stretchy pants? Because whether I'm hanging with friends or working out, nothing beats the fit, comfort, and versatility of Skechers Go Walk Wear. They're made with comfortable GoFlex fabric that has compression and hold, including a double compression waistband. What's that mean? It gives me curves in all the right places and minimizes the spots where I want a little help. And the versatility is incredible. Go Walk Wear pants have 4 pockets, 2 back and 2 side. Plus, they're machine washable and come in extended sizes, so everyone can look great in these pants. Easy care, easy wear, and made to fit every body. That's the Skechers Go Walk Wear line of pants. Find yours at Skechers.com, a Skechers store, and find retailers everywhere.
Comfort Keepers Las Cruces is now hiring. Call 575-521-4400.
Stay informed at KTSMradio.com. News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Then your host, Andrew J. Polk, rounding the bend on the last bit of the last hour of the show here. But of course, we'll be back for you here in future days and weeks coming up here. Some of the things we'll be talking about, trying to bring you a little bit of closure on some of these election bits of coverage ahead of early voting starting on Monday. Break out the soapbox here for a minute. We do have early voting starting for the primary runoff elections here Monday, May 16th, with an election date being May 24th. So mark your calendars with either or both. Just make sure one of them's on there and you've got your plan to go vote. Bring a buddy. Bring a lot of buddies. Bring all of them that you think will maybe support your position. But exactly, we need more people voting. So again, if you're good with it, bring them to vote with you. That's the best I can say here right now. And of course, we got more guests coming up on those kind of things, including talking about City of El Paso projects, among other things. So stay tuned for all of that here. We got at least one more call. We'll get onto the line here right now. We do have Joe on the east side here with us right now. Joe, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks a lot for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I just have a couple comments. One was for the individual called in about whether or not the mental capacity of Raul, if he's going to eat a bullet.
Mm-hmm.
But, we don't have to worry about that right now because it's still, way off between November. But I think on November 9th, we might want to do that, check up on him, see what's going on. Because he'd definitely be schizophrenic, really schizophrenic by the 9th of November. And also, I'd like to comment that the Saturday in 2019, I believe it was, 2020 rather, The Saturday in November that they announced that Biden had got the electoral college,
Mhm.
the 270 or whatever, I went outside at 11:30 that morning and turned my flag upside down, and it's been flying like that ever since. Until he's out of office and Trump's back there, or a similarity to him, it's going to stay upside down.
Okay.
Because this country is in really duress because of him.
All right. Well,
So anyway, like I said about Raul, they may want to check him on the morning of the 9th of November.
Yeah, I think there will be a
Other
lot
than
of let's just say mental anguish, perhaps might be a better way to put it, as we get closer to that election, and particularly with the outcome of it might be needing a lot of those.
Yeah, well, what I understand, yesterday you kind of cut him off and told him to quit beating a dead horse around in the ground. So it sounds like today he just turned around and started beating on our governor because he's still around.
Well, that is true in its own way that Abbott is definitely in office here. But again, there's a simple way we put it is if anyone was calling about any subject and saying essentially the same thing, regardless of topic, we wouldn't be doing that either because that's just bad radio. So we do the things we do, but otherwise we certainly do take comments, commentary, questions about all the things we're talking about here today. I would just like it to be debatable and as much as possible interesting points here. It seems to be what's most useful to people.
Are you going to do the same thing that you did with Raul yesterday that you're going to do with your Yosemite Sam, pound 250 guy that calls in all the time? Because he's getting a little rattled too. I mean, let's face it. There's no cotton candy on President Trump. So he needs to lighten up a little bit too.
Yeah, fair enough. Entitled to your opinion on that. Well, thank you very much for the point in the call. You have a good one.
You too.
All right. Again, we do take calls and comments on a lot of different issues here, and there might be some things about a response back and forth. I'm not going to prescribe anyone saying, you shouldn't talk back about other people. I mean, because discussion and commentary about even just the discussion itself can be useful to an extent. So I'm not wholeheartedly opposed to it, even if some others saying, like Calvin Williams saying, don't give it something else, essentially ammo, another way to put it here. But, well, we got other substantive things we can get to. I'll fully agree with that here. Speaking of which, a couple things I want to squeeze in right at the end of the show because oil and gas has come up here today. Flaco Jimenez saying that inflation, supply shortages, invasion of Ukraine, and many other problems are all directly caused by Biden's attack on oil production. The link to Ukraine is that might be an interesting one here, maybe a little bit more tenuous, but I think I could see an argument being made there that energy policy in general is what was part of this here, even if I think there are maybe more overriding factors. I could see it playing a part. I will agree with that here. But I mean, energy policy in general has been, well, let's just say in Texas, it's in focus here. An interesting article actually out from the Texas Tribune about the race for railroad commissioner, which we've talked about just a little bit. Wayne Christian, the current incumbent railroad commissioner, and then that other just interesting person who has thrown their hat in the ring, Sarah Stogner, who, came to my first notice because of the interesting campaign method she had used with a short social media ad showing her riding a pump jack and not much. But of course, there are policies at hand beyond this, including other things. The renaming of the agency has come up here, as noted by the Texas Tribune on a recent North Texas visit and debate between the candidates here. That's just one of the many seats that is up on the election that is going to be, again, happening here starting Monday of next week. So be sure to have, again, that on your calendar, or make sure you go out again. Real simply, if you voted Republican in the previous one, got to vote Republican in this one. Voted Democrat in the first primary, you got to vote this Democrat in the primary runoff. If you did not vote at all in the primary, I'll forgive you eventually, but you can vote in either. That's just the way it works here. And then, of course, this sets up November, and then it's a free-for-all. Party alignment does not determine who you can or can't vote for, only your own scruples, much as the way it should be. But hey, primaries are how parties figure out certain things for themselves here. And then one other thing I wanted to mention on, border issues, shall we say, is that there was actually some action coming out of City Council on this, again, from our news partners over there, KFOX 14, that El Paso moves forward with plans to modernize and expand international ports of entry. Specifically, that the city of El Paso has approved applying for $3 million from the U.S. Department of Transportation in order to do a study for the international bridge system needs adjustment. Now, there are, of course, many different issues that come out of this and public-private partnerships that have been a part of the city of El Paso's management. and wanting to encourage and increase capacity at the inspected ports of entry again. The total cost will come to $5 million, so the grant would do about that's 3/5 of it, and then the rest will come from $2 million from the city, but specifically bridge revenue, according to the city presentation happening on that yesterday. So that's just one of the other border issues, a little bit more locally coming out of this. And Calvin Williams reminding us, if you're not sure who to vote for, write in Calvin T. Williams III here. Careful what you wish for. People have gotten elected for less. Okay, not that you would be necessarily in contention for this race here, but let me just say, to put it in perspective about how important individual votes can be. I've had some very intelligent people saying that voting doesn't matter, and I have my very serious issues with that statement they make here, because you going out and being a part of a movement to do it is important. And let's just say in some of these runoff elections, very specifically, particularly for the Republican nomination for the, County Commissioner Precinct 4, there was a difference of less than 20 votes on that. And what could have then, if one had made it over that 50% plus one line, could have determined that election and who actually makes it on the ballot. So your vote absolutely matters, particularly in these times when things might be less than. So I'm hoping and very much praying, as someone else mentioning there, that we should see a better voter turnout, because with all these issues we discuss, with all the potentialities and concern about things here, wouldn't say that I truly like the idea of having a flag upside down entirely. I think there's other ways to protest that don't involve the flag, as has been brought up by others here. It's an international symbol of distress, so you're entitled to it, but not something I do personally. But what I will say is that if you're not then going out and voting, then it's just, so much hot air. We talk a lot of things on this show. We are a talk radio show, but I hope that at least if there's just one person out there, spurring them to go out and actually then act on it, to do something, to get involved, to at least vote. We're considering voting essentially as a goal for the moment, but in reality, it's a stepping stone to getting people more involved, more educated. Because, yes, getting people educated. I think we played it yesterday, but I just got to play it one more time, because the idea of it here is we had one of those talkback calls yesterday.
Exactly, Andrew. These voters, if they do vote, we need to embrace them. We need to inform them. Don't dismiss them because they're ignorant. Inform them. That's what we need to do.
I fully agree with that sentiment, because getting more people involved, you want to talk about accountability, just to bring it back home with our major discussion here today involving the city manager, this kind of stuff, this kind of, wait, what happened? Wait, I didn't know about that. Sure, there's some impetus for people to stay informed here, but there's so much information out there that without enough people actively focusing on it, putting out the information themselves, saying, hey, starting petitions, starting community groups, getting involved with it and saying, you got to get to the polls, asking people in your office, in your life, in your house, hey, are you voting? When are you going to vote? Do you want a carpool? Those kind of things. That's the kind of background machinery, in essence, that makes this work. And lacking that, expecting it to just happen on its own, Calvin Williams, they do say embrace us because we are ignorant. Not because you're very ignorant, but maybe that's the people you need to hug tighter, shall we say. Anyway, point is, get out, vote, drag someone with you. And really, I know that there's certain Texas laws now about actually going out and bringing other people with you to the ballot box, but really got to inculcate those values into the next generation as well, because it really takes seeing it being important to those that are raising you that really helps you understand why it may be important for future generations here. But we'll delve into that soapbox a little bit further on future shows here, but we're out of time here for this particular program because, I've been your host here, Andrew J. Polk. We'll talk a lot further about this and all the issues affecting us here in the borderland on future shows, as we do every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. In the meantime, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Stay safe. Have a good one.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Heads up for a crash on the I-10 eastbound. This one at Copia Street. It is blocking the two left lanes. Stay right there. I-10 westbound at Paisano. That crash is blocking the entrance and exit ramp. El Paso Fire on the scene. There's a backup there. I-10 westbound between Sunland Park and Paisano. There is a 5 to 10 minute delay because of an earlier crash on the 10 westbound just before Mesa Street. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Hey, Texas, this is Eric Burton.
And I'm Adrian Casada, and we are Black Pumas.
We've partnered with Don't Mess With Texas to turn up the message to keep Texas clean.
So come on, join hands and let us be united. Let's all do our part in taking care of our beautiful state roads.
It's time to step up. Together, we can keep Texas litter-free.
Don't mess with Texas, y'all. Peace.
Wondering if the COVID vaccine is right for your child? If you can trust it? Want to know what a healthcare professional would say? I'm Dr. Ada Stewart, Board Chair, American Academy of Family Physicians. We want you to know it's important for all children 5 and older to get a COVID vaccine because we know that millions of cases of COVID have been in kids. You can trust the COVID vaccine for yourself and for your kids. I do.
We can do this. Find a vaccine near you at vaccines.gov. Paid for by the